This is my story. I have no song, just a lone and broken heartache, just because I fell in love with you. I pray that you will come back to me, just to hear you say you love me and will never ever part. Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. One of the joys of booktubing is that you have a certain amount of interaction with folks who watch your video. And upon occasion, I get a question which is so interesting that it leaves me to think, to ruminate for quite a while after the question is first posed. And in that sort of instance, I like to share the question and talk about it. So I did a video a couple of days ago. I suppose you could call it my conversion video, my video about having gotten baptized. The video culminated in my reading of a poem about that baptism. Now this video is also going to culminate in the reading of a poem. So I'll share a little bit. Well, I should tell you what the question was first of all. The question was, have you had any paranormal experiences? And I suppose the explicit answer would be no, but that probably would be debatable depending on your stance in these sort of matters. My real answer was the word paranormal is not in my vocabulary. It's not a word I have used or could consider myself using. But I have had a handful of experiences that probably pushed the boundaries of what is usual. I don't think I can report anything that's so outlandish that it's the first time it has happened in human history. So I thought I would pull out first William Blake. This is a very nice Penguin edition, and there's a little timeline. And it mentions that in the year 1765 to 67, William Blake sees his first vision, a tree filled with angels on Peckham Rye. At the age of 8 or 10, his father threatens to thrash him for lying, but his mother intercedes. Now, I have often thought that I may have had a vision of that sort when I was young. At least when I read that, it resonated with me. But memory is a fickle thing. It's very unreliable, so I have no way of knowing if indeed I had some kind of a vision or if I just picked it up from reading that. There's an instance in Oliver Sacks's book, Uncle Tungsten, where he describes a bomb dropped into the garden, and I think it didn't explode or something like that. And years later, or at some point later, somebody said to him, well, how did you remember that? You were not in London at the time. And he realized that he had fabricated that memory by suggestion. it was a reality to his family members that had stayed behind. Now I might be misreporting that as well. I'm not sure, but it's something to that effect. So you cannot rely on memory all that well. But the three instances that I am going to talk about, I think are pretty reliable here. Now, I should say, one of the things which happened in the other video was I mentioned how I first learned the comedic method, if you will, how to write comedies. I'm talking about drama, comic plays. You have to learn how to do it before you can do it. And there are no instructors. You can easily find somebody offering to teach you a class, but chances are somebody who is offering to teach you a class in something like that may not know, because it's not the sort of thing that is easily teachable. But I mentioned how I woke up one morning with a dream. I can't remember exactly if the action occurred in the dream or it was just reported, but there was a character. I said he was kind of like a Charlie Chaplin-esque figure, and he said to me, the funniest day of my life was also the day that I got my teeth kicked in. I talked about this a little bit in that other video, so I won't go on anymore into that story. But that sort of thing, retrieving information or getting some guideposts from a dream, I don't think is all that uncommon. Actually, William Blake himself, he invented a process of some sort of etching process on copper or something that an angel, I think it was actually his brother, not an angel, a vision of his brother in a dream told him how to do, something like that. I haven't read that. So that kind of thing is not unusual. I mean, it's rare, but it's not unheard of. And I should add to that, whenever I have had some kind of an insoluble problem of that sort and tried to go to bed meditating and thinking real hard, I have never gotten any kind of an answer like that. The questioner also asked if I had had like any foretellings of the future and that kind of thing. And here and there, yeah, and you don't know how real any of that is. But there was a time when I woke up one morning with a dream that I had gotten fired from my job. And then I went into work and they called me aside to a room and they fired me. And I remember this anecdote, so I'm sure it happened, but I really don't remember the circumstances anymore. Which job was it? What was the nature of that firing? I have no idea. So the little bit of premonition impressed itself upon my memory, but that may well just be things at the job were trending in a certain way. The writing may well have been on the wall, and the dream just reflected that. I think dreams, for the most part, are kind of useless. You don't, when I was young, I wrote all my dreams out. And you get significant dreams here and there, but there's really significance perhaps as far as interpreting your own reality, even your own subjective reality. But beyond that, I don't think there's much with dreams. Every once in a while you have a dream that startles you and makes you think. And in those cases, it's probably worth your while to reflect on it. But as I say, I don't set much store by dreams. I think W.H. Auden said dreams mostly just reflect something you ate. So there's that. But there have been 3 instances when I've had an experience. Well, I'm grouping it in 3, but the first one you'll see was a little bit more than that. Experiences that were pushing the boundaries a little bit. So one of them was when I was a child, and I grew up in the suburbs. It was one of the oldest houses in the suburb in which I was raised. And so the bedrooms were on the upstairs, and the bathroom was downstairs. So I was a little boy. I was young enough to the point where I was still wearing those pajamas that had the feet attached. There was no cutout, you know. So as you get bigger, you start wearing pajamas that let your feet out freely. But these were the ones where I don't know if there's a name for that. And so I would have to, in the middle of the night, go down and traverse the darkened house to use the toilet. There was a dog barking outside. Okay, that's good. That's good. So the route to the bathroom entailed passing by the furnace. And I don't know if that played into it because you could see the little flames. But regardless, and it was not in the furnace room that this event happened. It would be as I descended the staircase and had to pass through the dining room, I guess you would say. Dining room, living room, and then you would tuck back into the nook where the furnace room was, and then the bathroom. And I would see a tiger, and it scared me very much. There was a tiger. And that happened numerous times. I was afraid to go down and have to pass by the tiger. The tiger never harmed me, and I remember it was such a pivotal experience in my childhood. It did not go on for years and years, so far as I know. I have no conscious recollection of what the tiger looked like. So in retrospect, I tell myself, well, maybe it was something deriving from the flame. Along those lines by Blake, tiger, tiger burning bright in the forests of the night. What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? So it's possible. I don't know, but it was a tiger that I saw. This also calls to mind, if you ever read Carl Jung's memoir, Memories, Dreams, Reflections. It is filled with that sort of anecdote, just little odd things that happened to him. And when I read it, I thought, this is a genuine autobiography. This is what an autobiography should be. Instead of, I was born in such and such a year and so forth. Yeah, he was looking out the window, and there was a figure in black with a black hat walking up the avenue, and it scared the wits out of him, and he went and hid under the bed or something like that. That's the stuff of which lives are made. So the tiger was the first one. The second one I mentioned in that other video, which I should say I will put a link to. in the description box. At the age of 30, maybe, I'm not sure, 29, 30, I didn't write anything down. Somewhere in my papers, I have something that I wrote about the experience because I did not want to forget it. And I was going through a phase of some sort of distress. That's the best I can say. I don't remember the parameters of that so well anymore either. We're talking something that happened more than 30 years ago. So I was in some distress, and I guess I must have gone to bed or something, I don't know. And all of a sudden, it was like something cleaved in my brain split apart. And I saw something. And I had been reading Hinduism at the time, and so the words that I grasped to describe it was that I had seen the imperishable Brahman. And beyond that, well, I think I can refer to more of it later. But, well, I would say that I saw the souls coming and going, if you will. At least that would be a later interpretation of it. I don't think I thought that at the time. You see things, and sometimes it takes a while to learn what happened. That's how it is with anything in life, really. So that was the second one. And the third one happened about 10 years later than that. And it's another one I don't have an exact memory of how it happened. 2002. I think that I was spending a night or two in my childhood home for some reason. I don't know if that was the time when my father was sick and I was looking after him. It may well have been, but I don't know. And I'm not even sure about the setting, honestly, but I was visited by an angel. And there was a little bit of discussion. And that encounter subsequently, not right away, and in fact, it may well have been, well, probably within a few months, that encounter was used in a poem. Well, I think I'll just go on and read the poem. So this video will not culminate in the reading of the poem, but I may talk some more. I think I've read this poem before. And the poem is titled An Angel's Step. And at this time, I was doing, I don't know why, the muse was having me cut off the letter S in a lot of verbs. So where you would normally say, he goes to the store, in a lot of my poems it was coming out, he go to the store. I am not real happy with any of those constructions. in these poems, but I will try to read it as the muse delivered the lines. So, An Angel's Step. An angel's step is like the morning dew. He came to me within the morning light, or half-light, as the day was breaking new, and I scarcely awake, not sleeping quite, since all the dreams of night had taken flight. If there was anything that I would have, the angel asked me, him before my sight, I in my bed, not feeling scared or brave, my room with the appearance of a cave, bathed in a half-light. If he sat or stood, I knew not, as he probed for what I crave. I answered him without a thought for good or ill, for I was in the waking mood when disposition to deceive is gone. Balance, I said, the first word that I could think of, and then I knew I was alone. The visitor had left, his work was done, and I continued, like as in a dream, to contemplate the sense of what went on, except fully awake my state did seem. In fact, I knew it so. Now my brain teemed with thoughts of wonderment. Was it a test the angel posited? Such it I deem, and wonder further, what does it suggest? For I have many base desires confessed as precedent to all before the Lord, so many lusts by all the world repressed, that it seems strange such a reply occurred. I thought about the dream that I had heard recounted in the Bible, how the son of David was so asked what he preferred by God's angel. I speak of Solomon, and answer that he gave forever stun the world and leave its hearer out of breath. Wisdom, he said, instead of lustful fun, instead of power over life and death, and many other things. All fall beneath that single entity, wherefore as wise, from every hearth to furthest meager heath, the Son of David all men recognize, and in their hearts his truthful answer prize. The story in my youth I had been taught, but never thought that, much to my surprise, in later life, an angel would be brought to visit me. So ask, and that I ought be called to render my reply sincere, issued from spirit, not devised in thought, and that all posturing would disappear. As I lay in my bed, the morning clear, I wondered if the answer that I gave unto the angel, him no longer near, had been improper, had I made a grave error, effects of which I not forestave on my eternal soul? Did I do right? At first I felt worse than a fool or knave, not having answered wisdom as I might, had I but studied, practiced to recite the tale of Solomon. But then I knew wisdom and balance are not disunite. Before he left, I learned my heart was true. An angel's step is like the morning dew. So that was the poem that came of the encounter with the angel. And I have heard people say things like, well, I don't believe it. I don't believe you had that kind of experience. That's fine. I'm not asking you to believe it. I myself have said I do not believe anything. I don't believe it. But it is my story. I can report the things that have happened to me. And there again, somebody will say, angels do not exist. I have never seen one. They are made up. Such an encounter could not have existed. That's fine. But there again, you can say, well, I have the poem. And so there you get into the topic. I think I touched upon it a little bit in that other video. When one is a writer, particularly when one is a poet, one must be receptive to what the world offers. You may not always get what you want. I think I said things have a tendency to work out. So those are my 3 experiences which test the boundaries, if you will. I have no idea what the encounter with the tiger means. I have no idea what the rest of it means. Now the vision with the head splitting apart, I have made use of that in poetry. So if you read my big poem, my first big poem, not my biggest, the Requiem, you will see I close with a description of the light and the souls coming and going. That exactly comes from the experience. And as a writer in poetry, poetry is, well, it is sort of like you've got a deck of cards. You're doing sort of a magic trick. It's a deck of illusion. And so when you are writing, you can pull on different things. And if you've had something like that in your past, you can draw on that. If you haven't had that kind of an experience, then you can't do that. You cannot make something like that up. You may try, but it would fall flat. The experience is very similar to that final vision that Dante closes out his comedy with. And so now, I think I read the comedy before I had that experience and reread it sometime after. And when I read that, I thought, oh, so Dante saw the thing also. And it's again, not something that is so rare that you don't come across it. But it's the kind of thing that if you have seen it, you can recognize it. And if you have not seen it, possibly you cannot recognize it. All poetry has to be traced back to experience. I think in my sonnets, I ask the important question: deliberate fiction poetry, or else fictive deliberation? And so when you write a poem, it is genuine experience that goes through the prism of the imagination. So you cannot be lacking either of those things. Now, the experience upon which all of this is based, and here I'm going to reveal the secret, I'm going to tell the silent part out loud. And it may be disappointing to some people to hear, particularly writing teachers who like to sell the idea that anybody can do anything. You can do it, you just have to practice, 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 and you'll be able to do it. We all can do something. We're all different. Each of us is unique. But you may well not be able to do what I can do, and I may well not be able to do what you can do. That's how the world is. That's how the human world is set up. So the experience which I had, and I must have been 8 years old, something like that. And again, I would say I did not immediately recognize this. It takes a while for you to learn and for you to figure out these things. When I was 7 or 8, I fell in love. And you may well say to yourself, well, that happens to everybody. Well, this was different. And even at the time, I knew it was different because I had friends who had a crush. And my best friend's crush on, I can't even remember the girl's name. It lasted the school year, I think. But mine lasted longer than that. So when I was still before becoming an adult, now, when I was in the 6th grade, I had that experience, and I've talked about it, I think, in my video about my relationship with the muse. I tapped into poetry. The poetic muse visited me. That's a very different thing to any of this other stuff. I say different, but I wouldn't be surprised if everything is all related somehow. And so by the time I was probably in my late teens, Christmas came around, I think, and my sister, who was very perceptive, bought a few books for me, and one of them that she gave me was this, Dante, the Divine Comedy. And I subsequently went on to buy Volume 2, Volume 3, and in later life I would buy the Sinclair translation because it was a bilingual edition. And again, I was lucky. I had Italian in high school, so I was able to make use of and enjoy the Italian to a degree. I don't think I was as bad as T.S. Eliot when he was reciting his memorized lines to himself in the dark. But my reaction when I opened this book was, oh, he had the same experience as I did. So that's a very different sort of reaction to the work of literature than I suppose many people would have. But I believe that most writers of poetry have had such an experience. We may not always recognize it. As I say, sometimes these things are hard to piece together. Of course, if you really want to get a much more tailored to my boyhood experience sort of narrative, that would come in this book. I didn't read that until much later. But every single thing in what I have written has derived from that initial 7 or 8-year-old boy's experience. And so when I write a poem, everything is at some point drawing back to that. It's like a silken thread that any poem I write will keep in touch with. So I may be writing about something that just happened. What is one of the lines in here? You so rudely slammed the door. Well, that door was slammed, and that happened. Either it happened in the present or in my imagination as a description of the present. But there is, regardless, a line that goes back to the experience of that boy. And that is the real rarity. So how any of this ties together, I don't know. But a lot of writing gurus like to suggest that if you just practice hard enough, if you just revise diligently enough, you can get to the place in your dreams, the idealized position you would like to occupy. And it's not the case. I would not be one to dissuade anybody from trying to write poetry. It is a very worthwhile activity, whether it's a craft you can progress further in, whether you can gradually develop to the level of a Wordsworth. It's good because it instructs you about the world. When I was young, I took dance classes for a couple of years. I was diligent. I went every day. I bought the monthly pass. I studied ballet. I studied modern dance. I studied jazz dance. I even studied tap dance. And I was not very good at it. And at some point, I let it go. But it enriched my life immeasurably. I think I did a reading of John Keats on his birthday, October 31st. And I read from his introduction to his long poem, one of his long poems, in which he says the imagination of a boy is healthy, and the imagination of a man is healthy, but there is a whole period in betwixt those two, which is a little bit crazy. And I think he's right. In my case, that intermediary period probably lasted until age 30, sometime after whenever I had that brain-splitting vision. Now, it happened that in the big scheme of things coincided with my developing my mature style as a poet, figuring out what I was doing, because I don't think in one's life these things which happen occur in isolation. And so they are all of a piece, or at least they can be. So I thought I would share all of that with you. One never knows what of what one has spoken may possibly be of use to another person. But since this channel is morphing away from strictly booktube and moving into directions which I myself cannot foresee, I thought it was worthwhile to answer that question. I suppose how stale, flat, and without profit, or whatever the quote is, life would be if we did not occasionally have experiences which push the boundaries. Thank you very much for stopping by my channel.